Okay, so let's now talk about what happens when you have two lines that are graphed together. So let's say that I had y equals 2x plus 3, and I had y equals negative 2x plus 3. If I were going to graph these on a coordinate plane, we're just going to ignore the graph that's already there. I would graph the 3, and then my slope is up 2 over 1. So it would look like this. And then negative 2 plus 3 would be same down 2 over 1. And then I would graph that one. It would look kind of like that. Now, these two intersect. There are three types of intersections when you're dealing with two sets of equations. So we have one solution, and that's when the two lines intersect. Like I grouped these two, they intersected at that point right there. We then have no solution, and that's when the two lines never intersect. And what happens when you have two lines that never intersect? They are called parallel lines. And then you have many solutions. And this is actually an infinite number of solutions. It's when the two lines are the same. Because they graph on top of each other, they would intersect everywhere on the same line. Now, in our two lines with parallel, we also have something called perpendicular. And that is when the two lines intersect at a point that is a perpendicular lines, where they look, the intersection would look like this. And it would be a 90-degree angle. There's a couple ways you can tell. Well, there's one way you can tell if the two lines are parallel, and there's a way to say if the two lines are perpendicular. So if two lines are parallel, they have the same slope. And if you think about it, it makes sense. Because no matter where you start, if I start at plus 3 or minus 3, if I go up 2 over 1 for the same thing, the two lines will never intersect. So remember, the slope is the front number in front of the x. So if the two lines have the same slope, then they're parallel. The two lines are perpendicular if they have opposite inverse slopes. Now let me tell you what I mean by that. If you said opposite of 3, it would be negative 3. If you said the inverse of 3, that would be 1/3. So you're basically taking the number, flipping it, and then adding an opposite sign. So if I had y equals 2/3 x plus 3, a perpendicular slope would be opposite of 2/3 is negative, and then you flip these two, So they have opposite inverse slopes. What you're going to be doing is looking at two lines and determining if the slopes are parallel, perpendicular, or neither. Now you don't have to graph these. You just solve them for y and look at their slopes. So let's take a look at 4x plus 5y equals 5, 12x plus 15y equals 1. So the first thing we want to do is solve both equations for y. So I'm going to subtract 4x from both sides. This is going to give me 5y equals negative 4x plus 5. Divide both sides by 5. Y equals negative 4/5 x plus 1. Now here, I'm going to solve for y. I'm going to subtract 12x from both sides. 15y equals negative 12x plus 1. Divide both sides by 15. Y equals negative. Now, 12 over 15 can reduce by 3, giving me 4/5 x plus 1 over 15. Now remember, the y-intercept, it doesn't matter. We're not looking at that. We're looking at only the slope. So, are they same, opposite inverse, or neither? These two are the same. So that means if you graphed both of these on a coordinate plane, they would be parallel. Let's look at another one. Four x minus 3y equals 6. 3x plus 4y equals 16. So I'm going to subtract 4x, negative 3y equals negative 4x plus 6. Divide by negative 3. Y equals 4/3 x minus 2. Over here, I'm going to subtract 3x from both sides. 4y equals negative 3x plus 16. Divide everything by 4. Y equals negative 3/4 x plus 4. So you're looking at your slopes only. I have a 4/3 and a negative 3/4. They are opposites and they are flips, so these are perpendicular. So let's talk about slopes of straight lines. And what I mean by straight, because all lines are straight, I'm talking about vertical lines and horizontal lines. Now remember when we talked about slope, dude? If you have a vertical slope, it looks like this. It goes through the x-axis. So whatever this is, your slope would be x equals whatever that number is, let's say 4. If you have a horizontal slope, this goes through the y-axis. And that is a y equals negative 2 slope. So if it is a x equals 4, it goes through the x-axis. If it's a y equals, it goes through the y-axis.